The Watership Down Podcast is intended for listeners who are familiar with the plot. There will be spoilers. This episode is scripted, narrated, recorded and edited by Newell Fisher. Hello, and welcome to the Watership Down Podcast episode 215, in which we will be going through Chapter 6 of the graphic novel, The Crossing. First though, Owsler member Andrew Stevens has been in touch with a book recommendation that fits very well with the graphic novel that we are currently looking at. The book is called Understanding Comics. It is itself a comic book written by Scott McCloud and looks like it was published in 1993. I've added the link to the notes where it will remain. Next, one of the balances I've had to strike in this podcast is that between over-pedantic detail and entertainment. I normally incline towards the former, as I've always figured that most people who follow an over 200 episode long podcast about one book and its subsequent portrayals are all about the detail. However, while preparing this episode, I've had to make a decision about how much detail to go into when analysing the compression of the original story in the graphic novel. It began, as such things often do, with a spreadsheet. For reference, in order to be able to compare the two while away from home, I used the Kindle version of the 1972 novel and the 2023 graphic novel. In comparing the lengths of the chapters, it is easy to count pages of a graphic novel, but the novel is a different matter. Do I count the number of pages of a chapter, including the title and quotation at the start, as well as any empty space on the last page? Or do I just count the solid text that tells the actual story of that chapter? I had started to blur the lines between the two a bit, and so from now on I've decided I will give both figures. The simple count of pages in each chapter in the original novel in the Kindle edition will be referred to as the basic pages, while the solid text of the Kindle chapter will be referred to as the full pages, and this last figure will be given to the nearest quarter of a page. Starting with this episode, I will give these figures as briefly as I can at the start of going through each chapter. Then at the end of each of the four parts of the story, I will also add the cumulative effect overall, bearing in mind that we somehow have to compress a 51 chapter novel into 34 chapters. My hope is that such pedanticism will make it even clearer where the story has been most and least compressed, and why. In a way, I wish I had done this kind of analysis in a lot more detail with the film and TV versions of Watership Down, but sadly I did not. But that's not to say we can't go back over that material one day for this purpose. As always, let me know what you think about all this, because you're about to experience the first example. The graphic novel, Chapter 6, The Crossing. Chapter 6 of the graphic novel has 8 pages and covers chapters 7 and 8 of the original novel. The Lendry and the River, which covers 6 basic pages, or 5 1/4 full pages, and The Crossing, which covers 11 basic pages, or 10 1/2 full pages. A total of just under 17 basic pages and 15 3/4 full pages. Which means that this chapter compresses the story by 9 basic pages, or 7 3/4 full pages. This is the largest story compression yet in one chapter, cutting the number of pages by more than half if measured by basic pages, and by just under half if measured by full pages. Having been comforted by the tale of the blessing of El Ahrar, the rabbits rest under the ferns, their eyes closed. But something awakes Bigwig. He sniffs the air, then orders everyone up. They follow him at a run. We see a badger. Its face seems aggressive. More rabbits running. The badger moves away. Hazel asks Bigwig what it was. A Lendry. Hazel adds that it had blood on its lips and had just killed. Bigwig comments it's lucky for them it had. He says pointedly to Hazel that he led them into these woods. He looks angry. Mind you, this Bigwig usually does. There is an awkward pause. They stare at each other. A leadership moment has arrived. Everyone is watching. Instead of defending himself, Hazel praises Bigwig, pointing out that he has just saved them from danger. Bigwig's anger subsides as he acknowledges the danger they faced and says they did well. They, not him. Hazel doubles down on the praise, directing the credit back to Bigwig. When angry, Hazel calms this slightly angrier Bigwig than in the original novel with praise, and Bigwig turns that praise outwards to the group, a sign of his true character underneath that anger. Hazel turns to Fiver, asking him what they should do now. And we see they have arrived at the River Enbourne, which Fiver says they must cross. There is a chorus of objections from the others, but Fiver is just staring ahead fixedly. He speaks of a high, dry place where they'll be able to see all around and where men hardly come. We see across the narrow river to Hampshire, and for the first time we see all 10 rabbits in one picture. It has started to rain gently. Hazel says they are all exhausted. Is Fiver sure? He is. They need to get to the fields they can see, and then beyond them. Bigwig says this is foolish. He adds he will look for a better way upstream. We see a bird in its nesting hole in the river bank. It looks both ways and flies away over the river. Bigwig is sniffing the air. And we see what he has smelled. A dog. The rest of the group are still flying and resting. Dandelion asks Hazel if they will be crossing soon. Hazel replies he hopes Bigwig finds a better place to cross upstream. Silver spots Bigwig returning, and he delivers his news. The dog may have been tracking the Lendry, but that will be underground by now. It will be on their scent soon. They have to go now. Hazel stares at him for a second. Then he says he will stay with Pipkin, who has hurt his paw. Bigwig loses patience, calling Hazel a blockhead and adding they will all be dog food. Hazel points out that he got Pipkin into this, and he is about to say he's going to get him out of it, but Bigwig interrupts to point out that it was actually Fiver who got them all into it. They are interrupted by Blackberry, who calls Hazel over to see a flat piece of wood. He points out that it floated down the river. As Fiver arrives, he points out that they could put Pipkin and Fiver on it and make it float again. But Hazel doesn't understand, and says he has Bigwig's temper to deal with, and now his cleverest rabbit has lost his mind. But Fiver understands immediately. He says to call Pipkin over, and then, once Pipkin is on the wood, he gets on. Bigwig and Silver are told to push the wood out by Blackberry. Bigwig agrees with Hazel that it is crazy, but they do it anyway. And it floats. Slowly, the 2 small rabbits spin away over the river. Bigwig comments incredulously that they are sitting on the water, and then Blackberry tells everyone to swim. We see rabbits, including Bigwig, in the water, their ears flat, and then they are across and in the county of Hampshire, not that that would mean anything to a rabbit. Hazel asks Blackberry where the 2 small rabbits are. Bigwig is pushing them the rest of the way across, and then they are on the bank safe. Fiver says to Blackberry that Pipkin has no idea what has just happened, but he does. He knows that Blackberry has just saved them both. Blackberry admits it was a good idea. They should remember it in case it comes in handy again someday. Comparison with the book. In the original novel, the Lendry, or badger, arrives as soon as the tale ends rather than after a pause. Bigwig confronting Hazel about the woods after the encounter with the Lendry does not happen in the novel, where he only begins to lose his temper on arriving at the River Enbourne. Here, in running from the Lendry, they have almost casually arrived at the river in a moment of story compression. Also, in the novel, daylight has not yet arrived when they reach the river, the fields beyond only slowly becoming visible. Also, there is no mention of the light rain that starts in the graphic novel. Also, in the graphic novel, Bigwig doesn't swim the river to scout out a crossing point before seeing the dog, as is usual in portrayals of Watership Down. In the original novel, he does, crossing the river 3 times in all. In the novel, Hazel says he will stay behind for Pipkin and Fiver, who is also in a bad way, and if anything, the novel's Bigwig is more angry at this point, pointing out that Fiver just got Hazel into this situation, rather than all of them. Hazel's confusion over the use of the piece of wood is dealt with in far more detail in the novel, and Blackberry hints that Hazel should give the order to swim, rather than giving it himself. This reflects the more stark challenge to Hazel's authority that he faces in the original, given the level of debate once they reach the river. And so, as the rabbits cross the river from one English county to another, we cross from one year to another. The next episode will come out in the new year, and may I take this opportunity to wish all of you who celebrate it a very Merry Christmas. which I very sadly didn't get to do last year due to my unexpected illness. And indeed, for those of you who celebrate other festivals in this holiday period, I hope you have wonderful and fulfilling celebrations. And, of course, I wish all of you, whether you mark it or not, a happy Frith's Eve on the 21st of December and a joyous Frithmas on the 22nd, the day after the winter solstice. For further details, see episode 146, which is now, unbelievably, 2 years old. Why not take that opportunity to give a gift to a non-human? Either some much-needed food for wildlife or something for a pet, away from the stress of the human Christmas. A very Merry Christmas and Frithmas to all of you, of all species.
As man shares with us, we'd like to share with you.
In the spirit of Frith's Eve, we accept. And we thank you.
Listen, they're at it again. It sounds right, doesn't it, Hazel? It's Frith's Eve and it sounds right.
Next time, for the first time, we meet the Elil.